Hello and welcome to episode 13 of Establish the Collection. I am Cody Main, joined as always by my co-host Gary Hartman. And Gary, this is like the first episode that we're recording and it's not after a basketball game.
I know. And I was actually going to say, I thought you were going to say, how are you doing? And I was going to say, well, I'm okay. It's weird not having basketball every night. But, here I am. And I watched the MLB AllStar game. It was fine, but there's enough here to keep me going. I have a new favorite sport in Formula One. Baseball's fun, and I feel like I'm just in full on preseason NFL mode, even though it's only towards the beginning of July still. So I'm doing okay, even though I miss the nightly grind of basketball.
It was honestly, it was kind of a depressing realization for me earlier. I was like, oh man, usually I'm waiting till 11 o'clock or 11:30 to get the link from Gary, and we're talking about game 1 or game 2 or game 3 of whichever conference series it is. And now there's nothing, no basketball. It's kind of a depressing realization for what's to come over the next couple of months, but we're going to quickly get into baseball, obviously. And then, man, football is going to be here before we know it. So we'll be busy with stuff to watch.
Oh, of course. It's not there's plenty of stuff for us to watch right now. Can't wait for football. That's for sure. And the good thing about the way basketball's set up right now with COVID pushing everything back is the draft's in like 2 weeks right after the finals, essentially. Yeah. And we're going to go right into the draft, right into rumor season, right into trades and free agency. And it seems like it's never going to stop. Then before we know it, Gallagher will be tweeting out 40 tweets a day from Summer League, and we're going to be having a great time. So NBA just keeps on going.
If there's anything NBA related to get excited for, it's to get Gallagher back on the pod to talk through all of his Summer League favorites and potential buys for guys that are busting out in Summer League. So I am really looking forward to that.
I know he had mentioned a couple weeks ago that he was starting to look at hotels in Vegas for Summer League.
Oh, no. Only Gallagher. Yep. Only Gallagher. All right, we got a loaded show today. Baseball is on the horizon and taking center stage, as Gary mentioned, with the All-Star Game, Home Run Derby, and the whole spectacle around that event, as we saw unfold yesterday. But before we get into it, just a couple housekeeping items. Do not forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We're going to keep running giveaways at random to our loyal listeners and our loyal listeners only. And by doing those 3 things, you'll be entered in to win. I think Gary's got something ready to give away at some point here. We're going to wait till we get those numbers bumped up just a little bit. But again, we appreciate everyone that's come out listening to the shows, has already subscribed, rated, and reviewed the podcast. And if you haven't done so, just do that before you leave here today. And one last final piece of housekeeping news. We've kind of launched our Twitter account and our Instagram accounts. If you're not following those yet, please do so. Follow the show on Twitter at CollectionETR. And at Establish the Collection on Instagram.
Yep, absolutely. Instagram, I need to do a better job of getting that off the ground, but we've done a good job getting Twitter going. Thank you guys for following that so far. You're going to get to see some of our little video clips that we put out, and any other goodies that we find in the Twitterverse will be on there. And then I want to do the Instagram thing right. So, there's a whole Instagram card world out there. And I want to make sure that if you're following that account, you can go to it for reliable news. You can go for it. You can look at the people that account is following for reliable card accounts. And, you can kind of immerse yourself in that world as far as connections and things like that.
All right, let's get into it. Let's get the people caught up on the week that was around the hobby. And it wouldn't be official. It wouldn't be an official Established Collection episode if we weren't talking about Golden. Seems like they've become a staple for us. What happened at yet another record-breaking weekend at Golden Auction with Shohei Otani?
Yeah, so Otani, they had a bunch of his colored refractor Bowman rookie cards. He doesn't have it's his first Bowman, but it's considered a rookie card, obviously, for Otani, as he wasn't an American prospect. And the big sale from that set of Otani cards was a new record for his orange chrome refractor, which is out of 25. Orange in Bowman is always out of 25. And that was with a BGS 9.5 with a 10 auto, and that went for $148,000 for an Otani rookie. So that's a new record for an Otani Bowman rookie there. No surprise with what he's doing with 33 homers at the deadline. Was the winning pitcher tonight in the All-Star game. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I would expect if he stays healthy for these type of Otani records to keep kind of popping up as this season progresses.
Yeah, we'll get into Otani's market, both the flagship and the very high-end stuff, like you mentioned. But keeping with the theme of the extremely high-end stuff, not to be outdone, the Mick made major news this weekend. Mickey Mantle set a new record for his 52 tops. PSA 8 went for $2.1 million at Newman Auction. And I actually saw this posted on the Rockies Twitter account. I think you saw this too. There was a pretty big entrance made for the what's it valued at, like $10 million for the PSA 10 version of that card, one of just 3 in existence. I think they had that bad boy displayed at the All-Star game this weekend. So really big news for, the high end of the hobby. We always talk about this. It's really good to get eyeballs on the hobby. Seeing that thing displayed and posted by Major League Baseball team on Twitter is really good news to get fans engaged, and very cool stuff. Yeah. There was actually a Mickey Mantle that is being offered and actually openly traded on a fractional platform called Collectible. We haven't talked a ton of fractional on here, but Collectible has one actively trading on the secondary market. That quickly jumped up about 30% on secondary trading after that thing sold this weekend. So very, very good sign for both the fractional space, the high-end collectible space. Anything to add to the Mickey Mantle discussion there?
No, I mean, it makes sense that the collectible price jumped at that number. That definitely is a new high for that PSA 8. I was going back looking historically, you even see over the past year, you saw that some went for like 1.15, closer to 1.5. So this is definitely a big jump for a PSA 8 to cross that 2 million threshold. You like to see it for that 52 Mantle. It's certainly one of those pinnacle, Pantheon baseball cards. And yeah, I think the $10 million valuation on that PSA 10 with the 3 in existence is a fair one, honestly. If one ever hits the market, I would be surprised if it didn't get close to that number, given that we saw the 9 go for 5.2, I think is the new record on the 9. So, to get the perfect grade, I would say you could probably about double that 9 score. So.
Well, and we've seen a huge premium for the differences at that level, like we're talking with the Gretzky card that sold for 3.7 compared to some of the sales for the 9s. Once you hit that mark, and there's so few in existence, the rarity is literally 1 of 2 or 1 of 3, something like this. It's just going to be tough to touch those numbers. So I wouldn't be shocked if 10 million was low, to be honest.
Yeah, that's it. It's a possibility for sure.
And I sent you this story, I think it was yesterday or the day before, but I didn't even realize when I sent you this story, there was this Florida doctor, kind of a tragic story, to be honest, but this Florida doctor passed away in January due to complications with COVID, was an avid card collector, had thousands of baseball cards. His wife didn't even realize what he had in his collection. Well, the sale of that PSA 8 actually belonged to this Florida doctor who sold all of his collection, most of his collection was sold by the family. And that Mantle sold for 2.1 million. He had a 33 Babe Ruth card that pulled a 4.2 million total. In all, his collection was worth well over 21 million. So I just thought that was kind of a neat story, a kind of a storybook ending for an avid card collector who, tragically passed away earlier this year.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Obviously a sad story, and I wish the best to his family, but it's definitely a way to leave them off without even, necessarily knowing what the family knowing what he had on his hands. It's really incredible.
With that said, if my kids sell any of my RJ Barrett cards, they're written out of the will. Out of the will. They don't get a dime. So if you're listening, kids, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now, don't even think about selling those RJ Barrett cards.
You hold RJ forever. That's right. Both of our kids will be connected by all the RJ Barrett cards that we're passing down to them, Cody.
Damn it. Our parents, our dead dads won't let us cash in on their millions.
Let's go drink Busch Light.
It'll be all they can afford.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into something that you saw posted on Twitter this week that I thought was very interesting, and something that deserves a mention, and probably a larger macro discussion, honestly, more so than just the story that came about that popped up on your Twitter timeline. But I would venture most people aren't playing around in these golden streets and these $1 million auction streets, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most people are probably buying and selling on eBay, like you and I, maybe other platforms like Alt and StarStock and MySlabs, et cetera, et cetera. But like I said, you saw something that popped up on your timeline. First of all, what happened with that story? I think you can explain it better than I can, and go into more your general thoughts on the situation that unfolded this weekend.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we can't quote the tweet directly because it seems like it's been taken down. But I did see a tweet a couple days ago pop up that was retweeted by Card Purchaser, which is a big Twitter account that kind of retweets all different things about cards if they see an interesting auction on eBay. It's a little bit of an overwhelming account. So they definitely are anything and everything that could come up about cardboard. They're tweeting it, but they did retweet in response to somebody that had basically said, "Hey, I gave this card to Golden for auction, and I had it on eBay at Buy It Now First, and I had an offer on this card for $6,500, and it only ended up selling on Golden for 19, I believe was the exact number, 18 or 1900. So obviously that's a big hit from what they would have taken on eBay. Now the tweet has been since taken down. He did the seller of that card did tag Golden Auctions in the tweet. I'm wondering if Golden tried to make it right. They didn't want the negative publicity, whatever. That's all speculation. However, I think this is just a better way to make a point about the reason that we always said I use eBay. And that is for cards that are, let's say, in the 4-figure range, let's say under $10,000, you are guaranteed to get the most eyes on eBay. And now I have all the respect in the world for the disruptors out there like StarStock and some really good companies that are using the vault system and, are a good way to price shop as a buyer, and hopefully will be great platforms to sell as well. But, eBay is still going to be the safer way to get your maximum value. Either that or, I mentioned that previous, like the Instagram card world, you'd be able to negotiate directly with somebody. But Golden, it's still a relatively new way to sell in a mainstream way. So, sending them a $4,000, $5,000 card does carry a risk to it for sure. The type of buyers that are going on there, just this is my general thought and opinion, are not the type of people that might be looking for a card in that range. That's just the way it is. Now, I think they're trying to get there. They're trying to be one of those eBay disruptors where they could be a marketplace for $200 cards and $20 million cards. But I don't think that's where it is right now. And I just thought it was a really interesting tweet that I saw that I think was worthy of discussion.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So your general takeaway there is just that anything maybe 5 figures or less, or maybe even lower, maybe 5,000 or less, or whatever threshold you're comfortable with, is better suited for eBay and not some of these auction houses. Golden being kind of the main player in that space. Although it seems like they continue to tweet out these these record breaking prices, that's where their buyer is right now. Their buyers are in that 20, 25,000 and above range, not playing around in some of the streets that most of us are playing around in.
Yep. And again, I've said this a little bit before the podcast. I have not yet used Golden Auctions. I do believe at some point I will. They're in my home state, so I can even drop off if I don't feel comfortable sending one of my big card items in the mail, which is great. So I probably will use them at some point here in the future. I would like to, if and when I do get something in their premium auction, which, we're talking one of those higher price cards, because I know that gets the most publicity. I know that's what they kind of push the most. Now, again, I don't know their business model that well. I know they have new ownership. They have a lot of socials. They have big followings. This could all improve and change. And as I learn more about it, maybe I'll change my tune. But for now, that's my general feeling.
Can I put you on the spot and ask you which card in your collection would be, if you had to guess right now or had to say right now, which card in your collection would be the one that you would first be listed on Golden Auction?
Yeah, I mean, I have a Zion Williamson National Treasures rookie patch autograph, so that's still sitting in that 30 to 70K range. Those depending on the out of 99s, depending on condition and grades and everything else. I have exquisite LeBron James patch autos from 0405. That's that range. The Luka Doncic iMac RPAs that I had showed actually last week or 2 weeks ago is also something that's in that range. So those are the type of cards that I'm talking from my own collection.
All right. Well, for the plebes like me that aren't playing around in the $60,000 to $70,000 range like Gary is, because we know that the high end of the market has been hot. We know it pulled back just like the rest of the market did, but the high end of the market's been pretty hot throughout the last 90 days or so. But based off what we've seen from the rest of the market recently, the mid-tier stuff, some of the lower end stuff, even base cards, which we saw really pull back, it looks like we're starting to see the market settle in. Anything that's pointed you to in that direction to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable about where the market's at versus what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, it just looks like that the at least kind of the rapid decrease that we were seeing has stabilized a little bit. We were down 30% on the last quarter overall in the card ladder index, which kind of takes a nice overview of modern and vintage, the big name, kind of your flagship. There are the 52 Mantles, obviously, and the 79 Gretzky's in there. All those big cards, the 54 Hank Aaron. They do a good job spreading it around. There's some soccer stuff sprinkled in there too. So I actually think that's a pretty good index. And that had been down nearly 30% over the last quarter. And now over the last month, it's only down 5%. And I haven't seen any big days where it's taken a big dip over the last 2 weeks or so that I've been taking a look at it. No daily change really over a percent or so. So I've been happy to see that. So it seems like it's really stabilizing a little bit. And, that's obviously something that is great to see as somebody that's in this hobby day in and day out.
Yeah. To piggyback off your point, StarStock has an index not all that similar to card ladders. There's just more modern players, PSA 10s of kind of the ultra modern guys, even some raw stuff for guys that don't have huge pop counts. But the NFL index on Star Stock is up. The MLB index on Star Stock is in the green, and NBA is still down slightly. So you're starting to see kind of the same thing that you mentioned with the card ladder index across even ultra modern stuff and even raw cards. So it's a really encouraging sign. Some of these like pre ultra modern guys, like the 2012 to 2017 range, where really before the Luka and Trey class, some of these markets have like hit early COVID lows. So some of these guys where we knew that things kind of blew up, beginning with the COVID shutdown and beginning with the Michael Jordan documentary and all that stuff, and that just really kind of took off from there. We're seeing some of these cards reapproach those levels where they started out at.
Yep.
So for me, it's really represented a good buying window in this space. So yeah, definitely excited for what's to come. And if we're starting to see some sort of flattening, I want to get back on the buying train before it starts to go back up.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that we will see a time, when getting into next basketball season, basketball, the one that's still kind of maybe trending down slightly. I think we will see a time where that does go back up and stabilizes. As the rumor season comes in, as offseason comes in, and especially as next season we have a more regular 82 game schedule, hopefully less injuries, hopefully just what feels like a more normal basketball season next year with all the stars, hopefully knock on wood, healthy. I think that market will stabilize itself as well. I should just clarify on the card ladder index. It is I believe a 50 card index, and it does range from vintage to ultra modern. They even have the Charizard 99, so there's a Pokemon card going in there. So it's really I think it does do a good job indicating the overall sports card collectibles. Everything is graded in theirs, either 9s or 10s for modern stuff, or maybe lower for some of the vintage.
Yeah, and another feather in the cap of some stability in the market. The fractional space is really seeing some stability as well. Alton Insights is a great account, especially on Twitter, if you're looking into getting involved in the fractional space, or if you are involved in the fractional space. They have an index that tracks assets that are trading across a variety of platforms, from Rally to Collectible to Otis. And they were green for the first time last week since they started publishing updates in June. So again, really good sign. And for me, anecdotally, as I'm looking at those IPOs and looking at trading windows on the secondary market, things seem to be either trading flat or trading up. We're not seeing those massive sell-offs that we were even 30 days ago, 60 days ago. IPOs are funding quicker than they were just over the last few months. So, really encouraging signs, at least from my perspective, across the board.
Yeah, I love that, because I remember talking to you about a month ago when I was starting to get into Rally and some things, and I was like, hey, why aren't these filling up so quickly? My understanding of these were that, I like, for example, that Muhammad Ali card is the first one that I had gone into. I think this is such a unique, cool piece. You'd think it would go quickly. And then since then, I haven't seen anything really linger around as far as the IPOs filling, which is nice.
Yeah, honestly, when I was getting involved in fractional, it was like you had to. It was almost like, honestly, the Top Shot pack drops. You had to be there at 11 a.m. or whenever the IPO dropped, and you had to be ready to. You had to have quick fingers. You had to be nimble, and you would sometimes miss out on assets that would fund in like 1 or 2 minutes. So it was really weird for me being involved in the space as long as I have, seeing stuff not fund for weeks or months on end. So yeah, it's really good to kind of see that up. I think there was some people that got involved late that thought they could make a quick buck, buy things at IPO, flip them, and then got discouraged when they couldn't do that. So I'm sure some of that money's left the space, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So really looking forward to what's to come in the fractional space as we continue to see these record setting. The only way for me to ever get a piece of some of these record setting assets is to buy them fractionally, and I want to have the same upside as these mega wealthy people do that can afford a $2.1 million Mantle card on their own. I want to have that same upside. So places like Collectible that allow me to buy 0.001%, I'm definitely all on board with that.
Absolutely. I'm all signed up on Collectible now as well. I've bought a couple shares over there, so I'm with you on that. And actually, everything you just said is very encouraging for me as far as the the fractional space being indicative of what's happening in the hobby at large. Because if, as you said, when you were, or even possibly during the peak pandemic, if it was just like, hey, shares went like that, that was obviously mirroring what was happening in the real world with the crazy spikes in the hobby. And now if we're seeing these things fill up faster again, we are seeing kind of the market stabilize a little bit. That all is encouraging signs, as we said.
Absolutely. All right, we've talked fractional, we've talked physical. We can't leave our hobby news and notes without talking Top Shot. And unfortunately, by the time that you listen to this, the rare pack drop that is scheduled for Wednesday morning, afternoon, depending on your priority level will probably already have happened, but there are some noteworthy differences with this pack drop that I thought we should mention on the podcast, and maybe things that we see going forward. So this pack drop is called, it's a rare pack drop called And Then There Were Four. They've introduced tiered queues based on your collector scores. First time that they've done this, at least to my knowledge. There's a total of 3 queues. There's 2,000 packs in each queue. And in order to qualify for the best queue, the priority queue 1, you need a collector score of at least 10,000. Priority 2 queue, a collector score of 5,000. And for the plebes like me, if you're in priority queue 3, you got a collector score of 100 and above, and you're in, baby. You're in for the pack drop. So hey, if you're like me, don't hang up. Don't just ignore the pack drop because you aren't one of these ballers like Gary. So make sure you sign up. Make sure you get in there. Make sure you take your chance at the pack. But all of this is important because, and hat tip to our friend of the show, John Jackson at John Boy Beats on Twitter. He posted some numbers. Q1 has roughly a 30% chance of getting a pack. I think there's about 6,000 accounts that qualify. Q2 has an 8% chance of getting a pack. And Q3, you and I, if you're listening at home and you're in Q3, we've got about a 1.5% chance of getting a pack. So, what's the meme? So you're saying there's a chance.
Yep.
Right. So the whole takeaway here is, and I think this is going to be something that they continue to do going forward. I'm sure this will be received well because, even for guys like me, at least we've got a shot, right? So I think this is something that collectors will receive well. You're not completely dusted if you don't have the 10,000 collector score, the 5,000 collector score, whatever the case is. So, but if you aren't willing to play the collector score game, you are probably going to struggle to get some of these rare legendary packs going forward. So, I know we talked off air. Like I said, I'm priority Q3. Your priority Q1, 2?
2.
Numero dos. Okay.
I'm 2, but I'm not far from 1.
Where you at? What's the collector score number?
So my overall collector score is about 1.4K, but I have the bonus, the drop bonus that bumps me all the way up to 8,900. So Woo! I'm only 1,100 away from being in that priority Q1. And quite honestly, I haven't been paying attention too much to my collector score and everything that needed for this pack. So Cody and I were just talking a little bit before the podcast and about ways that, hey, in the next, whatever it is, 12 to 14 hours before this drop goes, how can I possibly get myself up to that Q1? So Cody, I know you didn't deep dive into this at all because we just kind of talked about this, but any ideas or tools that I should be looking at to try to figure out how I can get myself up to, bump up my collector score quick?
No, and obviously I'm no pro because I couldn't get myself qualified. I'm not speaking as an expert here. And I would refer you to, if you want to really qualify and want to qualify the best way possible, I would refer you to our friends at otmnft.com. Mm-hmm. On the Moment is doing all the data behind the scenes to try and help you get your collector score bonuses as cheap as possible and try and get you qualified for these pack drops. So otmnft.com is probably the place to be. But there are some bonuses that'll help you get there. It sounds like you've already maximized your marketplace spend bonus. So shout out to you for losing money on Top Shot. It's incredible work by you.
Of course.
But as we were mentioning off air, I think the best thing for you to do at this point is probably to stack up. You mentioned that I think you mentioned 2 shows ago that you've already stacked up the Knicks.
Yep.
And if I remember right, I don't have the blog in front of me, but if you remember right, you can stack up those moments now that you own them, and they're worth double what they would be on their own. So right. If you're out there and you're like Gary and you're close, think through active ways that you can maybe boost your collector score. There's a huge expected value or expected probability of getting the pack if you increase from Q2 to Q1. So I don't know, Gary, you'll have to update us if you're able to get there by the end of the night. But I think your best shot is probably stacking those Knicks moments or one of these other cheap teams where you can kind of quickly level up your collector score.
Yeah, I'm going to look into it much closer after the pod here. But it's funny. The irony of this is that I have a better chance at this pack than you do tomorrow. Yet I've just shown how much of a noob I was in this market, given that much money I've lost in it. And clearly you a little bit in the green on Top Shot, I believe you had mentioned. So it's funny that that's kind of the way the world works sometimes.
You know what? And I'm not bummed out by being in Q3. Maybe I'll run hot for once in my life and get a pack anyway. And maybe you'll get into the Q1 and you won't get one. So we'll see how things work out. I'll be there. I'm gonna be in the waiting queue for the pack. But yeah, just a bummer. Just a bummer.
If that does happen, and I don't get one in Q1 and you do get one in Q3, I will take issue with you then. Yes, I'll have some problems with you, Cody.
We'll have words on the podcast. I'm fine with that. As long as I'm the one that walks away with the pack.
I'll transfer you my pack for a nice premium. That's fine too.
Oh, you think so? Yeah. All right. We got to transition here to MLB because we mentioned in episode 10, MLB really has taken center stage, episode 11 maybe, but MLB has really taken center stage. We expected it to, especially for casuals like me that maybe catch just a few games every couple of weeks. Man, I was glued to the home run derby. I was almost in tears when Shohei didn't advance past the first round. I was so bummed for that. I was actually glued to the beginning of the All-Star game, kind of dudded out for me, but it's MLB is definitely taking center stage to say the least. So any takeaways from the home run derby yesterday, All-Star game tonight, anything else around the spectacle of everything that's happened over the last couple of days with MLB, and what should we expect going forward?
Yeah, huge MLB weekend into midweek here. I guess we had the MLB draft kind of go right into futures game, home run derby, and all-star game. We're going to touch on it all right now. So, I mean, again, we've been speaking about this a length. You're going to hear us keep talking about MLB, at least touch on it in most episodes moving forward here, because it's going to be what we have to grasp onto. We mentioned we'll have the Olympics. We'll see if any interesting storylines come out of that. But for the most part, it's going to be MLB and then NFL preseason and the NBA rumor free agency stuff. And that's kind of the time of year that we're living in, which is cool. And all good things that I like. And of course, Formula One. But, for MLB, the home run derby was last night. I think we should start there. I mean, they do a good job making it as entertaining as possible these days with the bracket and everything. And I had a good time watching it. Pete Alonso, Mets power hitter, won once again. He won in 2019 as well. So for all intents and purposes, this was his title defense because he was not in it last year. I don't know if there was a home run derby last year. Yeah, Vlad won.
I don't think so.
Maybe there wasn't. So I don't know. Either way, let's call him a back-to-back winner. Then at this point, still a young kid, won Rookie of the Year, I believe a couple of years, say maybe 2019 as well. So, and he had over 50 home runs that year. So huge prospect at that point, right? Big power hitting, 50 home run hitter for the New York Mets. His cards were very hot around then when he won Rookie of the Year, and now they have definitely stumbled a bit and kind of stabilized for the last year and a half or so. I think he really needs to be kind of getting back to that consistent level on the playing field that he did in his Rookie of the Year season. Now that he's shown in these home run derbies that he could obviously be a huge star. So let's talk a little bit first about just kind of his paper and chrome cards. So his top series one, I believe he's out of from 2019. It was in the PSA 10, the paper had kind of been around that $30 to $35 range. I did see a bunch kind of pop up right after the Derby last night that sold for $50 or $60. So you saw that immediate bump, almost a 50% increase. And then for the Chrome card, which is this card here, PSA 10, same card in Topps Chrome, those had settled in at, let's see, I have it up here actually, so about $40 to $50 in most cases. And then all day today and last night, they were going for closer to 70, 80. I saw people putting them up for buy it now for like 120. So again, just maximizing those windows for things like this. It's certainly possible. So I would expect now with him winning this, kind of his name getting back out there for these cards to kind of stabilize at the higher level of that range that they've been in. But definitely a name to keep in mind. He's still young, still a huge marketable Mets star. So he's an interesting guy from a card perspective.
What's the long-term outlook for a guy like that? I know, and this is something I want to get your take on as we get through this MLB discussion here, but prospect windows in the MLB, as like I said, a casual fan and a casual collector seem a whole lot different than especially NBA, but even NFL for some of these top name quarterbacks. Seems wild that a 2019 Rookie of the Year, a guy that can hit 50 home runs and plays in the Mets market, could see his card market dip as drastically as it did in 2020 in the first part of 2021. Is that something that's normal in the MLB card market for somebody like that to see a drastic drop off in their card market?
Yeah, unfortunately it is with baseball, right? Like if you had one crazy year, but then you weren't able to show sustained success, I think people are quick to jump off. But, you ask about long-term sustainability for somebody like Pete Alonso. To me, he's somebody that I would look to invest in. Now, health is always an issue for everyone, but if he's 26, so he was a little bit of an older rookie when he won. I guess he was probably 23, 24. He's turning 27 this year at the end of the year. So, he's getting up there a little bit as far as kind of where he started his career, right? He wasn't one of those 19-year-old rookies is all I mean by that. But, is somebody that he showed he was able to hit 53 home runs in modern day baseball. Okay. That's not overall a fluke. Now, even if that is the peak of what he's able to do, if he's an everyday player, he plays in a stadium in Citi Field that is not a hitter friendly stadium necessarily. So, maybe even if he settles in at high 30s, but if he's like the next captain of the Mets, staple everyday player, stays healthy, he's there for 10, 15 years. This is a guy that if he gets 400 or 500 home runs in his career, absolutely has long-term sustainability. I would be buying now while his market's low, maybe wait for it to settle back down. People forget about the Derby a little bit, but if you're somebody that believes in a guy like this, this is the kind of player that you look at as for a long-term sustainability standpoint in baseball, because again, power hitters, big market, that's the kind of stuff that really matters in baseball. There was only on Card Ladder, there was only one track sale of his first Bowman auto, which was out of 2016 Bowman Draft. And that had the 9.5 with the 10 from BGS. And that was for $330. That was only one of the last 2 weeks. Then right after the Derby, I saw the exact same card last night, sold for $550. So a $220 increase. And then one raw last night went for $150 raw. And I think those were going for a little bit under $100 raw of late. So you're seeing this bump right now on that. That's definitely a card, and I would look in. Let's say the 330 was low and the 550s high. If that settles in around that $400 number, I want to see him do it on the field in everyday baseball more consistently. But he's somebody that is the kind of player you should look to invest in long term in baseball.
What about the guy that he ousted last night, Trey Mancini?
Yeah, Trey Mancini is just someone I wanted to have a quick conversation about because, he's just another example of kind of like we spoke about Matt Olson a couple weeks ago, that are these young or young-ish stars that maybe they're not superstars, but I think star is the right word for them. He's got a great story. He had to miss all of last year, the pandemic season, while he was battling cancer. He overcame cancer. He's healthy now, and he's kind of right back to where he was as like a budding player, first baseman for the Orioles, first base and outfielder for the Orioles. Now he is 29 years old. He debuted in 2016, was a little bit of a late bloomer as far as kind of his being an all-star caliber player. But, he's somebody that is a marketable guy, somebody that everyone wants to root for. Probably still has his big payday ahead of him as well. It looks like he's still on kind of his arbitration deals. He's only making, it looks like his $500,000 was his last salary from arbitration. So, he could kind of be in the spotlight a little bit from that, but he's somebody that you can get for really cheap, right? So his first Bowman Chrome auto, a lot of 2 for 9.510, just the Chrome base, sold for $150. I was looking at eBay sales. And that was with 2. So $75 average for that graded. If you want to get in on his color stuff, the refractors, the green out of 99 sold for $330 with a 9.5 with a 10 auto. So just another example of young, good talent MLB that may be undervalued. And he's somebody that you'd want to root for. So whether it's PC, somebody that you might believe in long-term, it's just another one of those other guys that is out there. You can get it at affordable numbers and made a remarkable return to the game this year and is having a pretty nice season.
Yeah, it's wild how deep the talent pool is for Major League Baseball right now. It's some of these guys, when you look at their markets and you think this guy's a top 20, 30, 15 player, maybe even, then you look at their markets and realize that these guys can be had at affordable numbers. It kind of makes you take a step back. I know we talked about the NBA market, kind of an NBA comparable, and it'd be like if Shea gets, SGA just didn't really have a card market. Even for some of his flagship stuff, some of his prison stuff, you're still seeing $150 or more dollars for that stuff. So I think it just speaks to how deep the league is right now, especially at the top end of the talent pool. Just looking through some of the All-Star game players, Vlad Jr., Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, Judge, obviously Otani. So many guys that are just absolute rock stars right now. Is there anybody else outside of some of the big names that we've talked about in the past couple of weeks, like the Otanis and the Vlads, that really catches your eye as a long-term guy or as a buy low type of guy? Anyone that you should be looking at as baseball starts to heat up right now?
I don't have too many guys in mind as far as just are everyday MLB players. My eyes right now are more on prospects and recent call-ups, and with the Bowman releases of late, those type of names that I've been tracking more than those kind of undervalued but budding star type players. But we've mentioned them. Bo Bichette's a guy that I really like. The Mancini, Matt Olson. You can find these guys left and right in MLB that are kind of top 15 through 50 players in the league.
Yeah.
Gleyber Torres is a guy in the Yankees that is vastly disappointed this year, and he's still only 23 or 24 years old and was a top overall shortstop prospect over the last couple of years. So you have a super buy low window right now if you think he could turn it around. There's so many guys like that in
so
the
league. I think that brings up a really good point, and especially for casual baseball card collectors and investors. Is the reason why some of these guys' markets seem like they're so stagnant or have dropped so much because people like you are prospecting on the next big thing and expecting the next big thing to come up? And maybe if that's the case, talk about why you would be interested in that type of player prospect as opposed to somebody on the big league stage that's maybe already proven what they can do given their career opportunities.
That's exactly what it is. And it's the reason why you have to be so willing. And even though it could be scary and you might have FOMO if you miss out on the exact window, but why you have to be so willing to sell prospects when they're still prospects, because the big names, the top 50 guys, the guys that are going to be, on the team's blogs being spoken about every day that people are tracking, waiting for their names to be called up. These are the guys that they actually might have their peak for, it could be like a 2-year window right at that time when they're getting the most hype and most talked about. Maybe there's word about them getting called up, or maybe they were, just got bumped up in the MLB pipeline and they're having amazing minor leagues years and now they're considered the number one prospect on their team or top 30 prospect, whatever it may be. That's going to be a time to possibly sell on a player like that. And that's where all the speculating is happening. And then once a guy gets into the bigs, you're going to have windows to buy back into those prospect cards, right? Gleyber Torres right now is a perfect example of that. For if you looked 4 years ago, right before he was going to get called up to the Yankees, you were paying probably double the amount that you can get that same first Bowman card now, even though he's probably, has another 15 years of his career ahead of him. But because he's disappointing so much in his third or fourth season, that's the whole thing with these prospect cards, right? So we talked about it with Wander Franco, the window that you had when he got called up and when all the hype's around him, the number one prospect in baseball. And I think we should use this as a kind of a transition into, first, I want to touch quickly on the futures game that happened. So the MLB futures game happens 2 days before the actual All-Star game. So that happened on Monday. A lot of big names in minor league baseball right now, actually names that are kind of in the lexicon of just average baseball fans. So you have Jason Dominguez, who we've spoken about at large. He was the first time they ever brought someone that young to come play in this game. He had only played, you could count single digits the amount of minor league games he's played. He appeared in that game. Bobby Witt Jr., also a really young kid that was the number 2 overall pick a couple of years ago, was in the same Bowman set as Jason Dominguez. 2020 Bowman was in that game. This is his gold refractor, first Bowman, 9.5 with the 10 auto. So this is a big card.
Very cool card.
He's got a very big market.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of guy that is his name coming around next year, probably right before the season. He has spring training bail. Can he be the starting shortstop on the big league thing out of camp? That's the time that I might be looking to sell something like that. But somebody like this. So I think the MVP of the futures game was the Cubs top prospect, Brennan Davis, 22-year-old kid, outfielder, has a lot of hype. Going into that Cubs market is a really big deal. For someone like that, I'm selling right now. Like he just won the futures game. He's got a lot of eyes. He's in a big market. The people that are looking to buy him know who he is, right? So that market has a level of sustainability. These are the kind of guys that you want to take advantage of selling while their names are still hot in their prospect days. And then you probably will have windows to buy back in if you ever want to get back involved. Now, you're not always going to. They might take off and never come back down, but you probably have to be willing to take that chance,
Okay, take that a step further for me, if you would, because these are guys that already have cards out, guys that are maybe peaking at the right time, and you're trying to sell them at the right time. What about what just took place starting on Sunday? I believe it was the MLB Draft. Any names that you can throw out to the listeners that they should keep an eye on when products are released, cards that they should be targeting, teams that they should be targeting, in box breaks and things like that? Who's the next crop of guys that we should be prospecting on?
Yeah, so this was by all considerations, this was considered a good MLB draft. There's a lot of high-end talent, a lot of good prospects. So Pittsburgh had the first pick, and they took Henry Davis, who's a catcher, Now, we've seen this happen now with catchers be the first overall pick in MLB drafts a couple of times over the last few years. And we've spoken a little bit about this as well. Historically, it's not to the extent of pitchers, but catchers historically don't have the exact same upside as position players or, regular position players, shortstops, power hitters, things like that. Now, we're starting to see this change slightly with this guy, Adley Rutschman. He was the first overall pick 2 years ago in 2019, also a catcher for the Orioles. I think he's right now in the MLB side, the second overall prospect in baseball. This is he was in 2019 Bowman Draft. This is his purple refractor, first Bowman auto 9510. So that's out of 250. So, that guy has a big market right now. And he's somebody that people think could be one of the next big catchers in the league. So maybe we'll see it with this Henry Davis kid who was the first overall pick. However, I would just say, again, historically catchers be a little bit, have lower expectations for what their overall upside is as prospects. So that's just something to consider. But it is very possible he's the first overall pick. He's going to have big hype in whatever product he comes out in, which will probably be 2021 Bowman Draft. So do you have any questions for what I just said there, Cody, before I kind of dive into what that release schedule will look like?
No, if you're going to the release schedule, that's my next question, because you mentioned Bowman and Bowman Draft. I think that I know the difference, but I really want you to kind of hammer that point home for me if you could.
Yeah. So Bowman Draft is what it sounds like. For the most part, it's the first prospect cards of the most recent draft. So the 2021 Bowman Draft, it'll come out in a couple of months, and it's going to be mostly the kids that just got taken as far as their first Bowman card. Now, Bowman does a couple of funny things. I mentioned that they have their Bowman release, which came out a couple of months ago. 2021 Bowman has a lot of first prospect cards in there as well. It could have been through the draft. It could have been through international signings. They split it up a little bit. So there's first prospect cards in each release. So 2021 Bowman Draft is going to have Henry Davis will be in that. Usually they have the first overall pick in that product. Now, historically, what they've done is split up the first pick and the second pick so that they can kind of hype one of the big prospects around each release.
Sure.
So basically, Henry Davis will be in 2021 Bowman Draft. And then the number 2 overall pick was Jack Leiter, Al's son, pitcher out of Vanderbilt. Really, really good pitcher. Yet he still is a pitcher for hobby standards. And they will put him likely in 2022 Bowman, just regular 2022 Bowman. And he'd be like the big flagship star pitcher out of that release. Now, something that I'm wondering is, because this was such a good draft and the top two one was a catcher and one was a pitcher, kind of two non-traditional, hobby positions as far as hype is concerned. For me, the biggest possible name out of this past draft was the 4th overall pick. Unfortunately, went to the Boston Red Sox, a shortstop named Marcelo Mayer, who I think was largely considered the best hitting prospect in this class. He's a shortstop with kind of 5-tool potential. And usually when you have a big market, 4th overall pick, shortstop, that is going to be the hot name, hot chase in the hobby. I can tell you right now. Now, I would guess they're going to put him in the 2021 Bowman Draft as well, since he was the 4th pick, not the 2nd. But I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe they decide to split up Henry Davis and Mayer and not, Leiter and Mayer. Now, again, historically they do 1st and 2nd, but you never know. So maybe you'll see Mayer be in 2022 Bowman and Davis in 2021 Bowman Draft. When we know about that, we will talk about it on the podcast. But yeah, that's the way that they kind of split up these releases. But Bowman Draft this year is going to be a very good product, given that this was a very strong draft class.
All right. I don't want to put you on the spot here. You mentioned Henry Davis, Marcelo Mayer. Anyone else as you're looking through the first couple of rounds of the draft that really stands out to you? Names that maybe deeper down the borders, it's just top heavy with these two guys as of right now, anyway.
Yeah, and so I mean, unfortunately, I don't know too. I'm not an MLB draft
not encyclopedia about the
not like
MLB
I do
draft
with the NBA and
Sure.
NFL, but. I do know that there was a lot of good pitching in this draft. So, I don't know how much that will translate. I'm really interested to see what Jack Leiter's market is as a pitcher. He's definitely one of the biggest pitching prospects in a long time, and he's got nasty stuff, and his name's been in the lexicon for a while. So he was drafted a couple of years ago, mid rounds, and decided to make his commitment to Vanderbilt. And made a great decision because he was the best pitcher of the country. And that was a 2nd overall pick. He actually had a teammate that when 10th overall was supposed to go, I think even earlier, like top 5, his name is Kumar Rocker. No relation to John Rocker, but he went to the Mets at 10 overall. So big market, also a really big power pitcher. So a lot of good pitching in this class, but I know that there was some good hitting down the board as well. Always hard to speculate because a lot of those hitters are usually out of high school. So it's really hard to say for those 17-year-old type of kids. But I know that Mayer kid for Boston is, pretty cleaned up as far as shortstop concerned. I would expect him to be the biggest hitting name in these upcoming releases.
All right, plenty to look out for in the MLB market, especially on the prospect side as these new products get released. We got to do a quick reset here in the NBA Finals. When we last talked, the Suns were up 1-0, shot the lights out en route to a victory in Game 2, and then Giannis was just way too much to overcome in Game 3. So we're at 2-1. Bucks are at home for Game 4 tomorrow night. Have your thoughts changed at all on the series? Have you swung in the Bucks' favor? Do you think Giannis can pull this off and get 4 and 5? To get the title back to Milwaukee?
Yeah, man. So it's definitely not. I'm not in the Suns in 5 camp.
Sure.
I'm definitely not in that. Giannis is. It's great. This is so freaking awesome to see because he's somebody that, and I don't think we're talking about this enough. Just as a whole, he's somebody that won 2 MVPs in a row over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And he's taking his biggest leap in the NBA Finals right now. I mean, what he's doing is incredible, putting up numbers that only Shaq has really done, the 40 and 14 numbers or whatever that he's averaging over the last couple of games. I think he's realizing that he shouldn't be shooting from the outside and just attack. They finally were able to get DeAndre Ayton in foul trouble. Just all really good signs for Giannis's game. Phoenix doesn't really have an answer. Now it's really good. Unfortunately, as good as he's been, it's really going to all be dependent on what he gets out of Drew and Middleton.
Yeah.
Because, both these teams are pretty thin right now. Like they really go 7 deep for as far as what they're comfortable with, 6.5, 7 deep. So, it's really going to all come down to the stars for this series. So what kind of consistent help can he get out of Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton? Both those guys are max players. You have to be getting max production out of them. So that's really what I want to see. I think they'll take Game 4 tomorrow night and we have a tie game and then it's anybody's series. I would love to see it go 6 or 7. I really think we're going to see it go 6 or 7. I still lean Phoenix, but I'm definitely, yes, more encouraged as far as it being an overall series after what I'm seeing out of Giannis last 2 games and Milwaukee grabbing Game 3. What say you?
I could not agree with you more. It's been so fun to watch Giannis. I'm not even a huge Giannis fan from a basketball perspective or from a hobby perspective, but it's been so fun to watch him do his thing in the finals. Some of the moves that he's made in the post and just literally pushing DeAndre Ayton back, just a physical specimen. It's truly incredible to watch. Like you said, putting up numbers that we haven't seen since Shaq. And he's really taken his next step. If there was a next step for a 2-time MVP award winner, somebody as physically gifted as Giannis, just putting the team on his back and kind of doing the old Marshawn Lynch and willing his team to victory despite some poor performances from Chris and Drew. Yeah, I mean, if he can get anything out of those guys for a few games, we could be in for a wild finish in Game 7. I'll say that much. But I'm with you. I still lean Suns, and I can say that and feel good about that because I could be right on the podcast. And I do have a small futures bet on Milwaukee. So either way, I'll be happy. But no, I think that bet might be a little dust, but I am hoping we see 6 or 7 out of the series because it's been truly a joy to watch.
Yeah, and not to get too in the weeds, but Drew Holiday was really solid in Game 3. We still have not had the Chris Middleton game. I want to see it all come together all at the same time for the Bucks. And if they could do that on Phoenix's court, we're going to have ourselves a series. Because right now it looks like Phoenix has a huge advantage at home. Clearly, Milwaukee looked comfortable at home. I want to see this rejuvenated Giannis and this energetic and kind of uber focused Giannis and Bucks team taking that onto the court in Phoenix, and we'll have ourselves a series. Just to stay on Giannis quickly, I'd mentioned this card on the podcast because I said I was looking at one that they were selling on eBay just for my own comps, but this is my best Giannis rookie card. It's that die cut light blue. I don't know if I had shown this before, but I figured I'd pop it back out again if I did. So this is out of, the 13-14 Prism. It's out of 199. It's in a BGS 9.5. Big Giannis rookie card. So, again, I've shown some cool Giannis stuff I have here. Obviously, my card, investments are rooting for Giannis. I think maybe as a basketball fan, I'm rooting for Chris Paul. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I'm happy either way.
Right. Yeah. That's all we can ask for as basketball fans. Yeah. I want to give you some time because at the end of this episode, we're going to talk about we got a lot of product releases, both recent and upcoming. I want to give you time to talk about that and talk about wax and what to do with it. So real quick before we get into that, just want to touch again, since we mentioned it a couple episodes ago, on rumor season. It's obviously heating up. We got the Shams article today in The Athletic about some speculation, and with draft and free agency coming up, the 76ers finally come out and say that they're opening up shop for Ben Simmons and willing to listen to offers. We knew that was coming. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. If Ben, we've talked about this, if Ben goes to a market where he can take over as the lead dog and they can try and build a team around him, and maybe somebody can fix the shooting woes. That's a big if. you might see his market rebound. Definitely in the short term, it will, with changing teams, but you might see his market rebound. And whoever comes to Philadelphia on the opposite side of that might see a similar short-term bump. Seems like John Collins is drawing some interest. I think we mentioned him a couple episodes ago. He could potentially be a max player in Atlanta. I would imagine if he signs that max deal, you'll see a nice little boost for his market. Or if he changes teams, I saw today that he was linked to Dallas and Miami. So I think those would be a nice boost for his market. And then my boy Lonzo was linked to the Clippers and the Bulls today. So it sounds like the Pels are unlikely to match an offer sheet. So yeah, we'll see. I think all of these guys, they could see short-term boosts in their market should they change teams, and if they go into the right situation, like Lonzo and with the Clippers, with surrounded by Kawhi and Paul George, might be a good situation for him to even take a step forward long-term in his game. Same thing with someone like John Collins. I think the ceiling might be limited for him. But he's kind of the perfect four for a team in today's NBA. I think he could make some noise. And then your Knicks are linked to, I feel like I think people want to link your Knicks to every point guard in the entire NBA. But sounds like per Shams, your Knicks might be interested in Colin Sexton. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm okay with it too, like with some caveats. So he's 22 or whatever, and he's super young, and he averaged 24 points per game. And that's kind of exactly what the Knicks need. They need youth and scoring out of the point guard position. Now, I don't think the analytics and data world loves Colin Sexton. I think that he's not a super efficient player. There's been some murmurings about his attitude, things like that, as far as kind of maybe he thinks that he's a little bit better than he is. Now, if he got in the hands of Tibbs, I think Tibbs can get, freaking anyone to buy in. I can get your 2-year-old or 3-year-old to buy into a system. So, maybe everything would be okay there. Now, the rumored package today was Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox, and their 21st pick in this draft. I'm fine with that deal. It's basically Kevin Knox and a 21, is a total dart throw. So it's basically Obi Toppin, the way I'm looking at that. They'd probably not be picking out of 19 and 21 anyway. They'd likely trade one of those in some deal or move up. So, at that point, Obi Toppin's going to be buried behind Randall no matter what. So it's basically like, I look at it as swapping Obi for somebody like Sexton. Yeah, I would be willing to do that for sure. Now, I don't necessarily want to be paying him long term. I want it to play out that year and then kind of make a decision from there. If they traded for him and then extended him right away, I would not like that. So if they trade for him, cool. If they trade for him and extend for him, I'm not game. But just as far as busy, rumor season in general, I'm with you. I think you mentioned some good names today. I was doing a little cleaning out of my inventory in my closet, and I grabbed a bunch of Kyle Lowry. I grabbed a bunch of Damian Lillard. I grabbed a bunch of Colin Sexton just to be ready to go if any big news drops from players calibers of that. I want to have those windows ready to bounce and those listings ready to go.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've got some low end Lonzo stuff, so I got that pulled. I did your method of get the pictures ready, get the drafts up on eBay, and as much as I love Lonzo, I'll hold on to some of that stuff. But as much as I love Lonzo, if he gets traded to the Clippers and people want to speculate on what that means, I'll hop on some of that, take some profits off the table there. I want to give us some time to really nail into some new releases and some upcoming releases, because we've got a lot on the horizon over the next couple of weeks and month. And then I want you to talk more about what we should be doing with wax, both short-term and long-term, and how to best maximize our expected value if we're buying wax or if we're getting involved in box breaks. So very open-ended, but take that where you want to go over the next 5 to 10 minutes here and just give me your thoughts on what we should be doing with wax with all the new products coming out.
Yeah, let's talk about that first, and then I'll talk about some of the products coming out. So, we've been having a little bit of conversation even in the Discord, just kind of some questions about, we were using it around Formula One, but questions about where to look for wax, expected EV, things like that. So I want to just talk about this in general. First and foremost, I think we've mentioned this before. It's still very important to know if you're buying your own hobby box sealed, going to rip your own wax, your expected EV is negative. It's not going to change. That is the case. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not worth doing, because it's not like, you're just throwing money away willy-nilly necessarily. And it's also not like you're just going to buy a lottery ticket, because usually you will get some money back in your value. Well, you're going to get something back in your box. Now, is it going to be $20 on a $400 box? That sucks. But at least maybe you'll get 200 of your 400 back, so you can make half your money back, something like that. A lot of products will have that expected return. Now, that all depends on your bankroll, what you're comfortable with, but you always have to remember that the upside is there in the modern card game, right? You're buying a $500 box because you could hit a $50,000 card. That's just the reality of it. And, so it's not necessarily like everything else in life where you're just going to always immediately avoid negative EV. To me, it's not like it's the same thing as that we've talked about entering GPPs. If you know what you're doing, you're going to have a better chance of returning value. So for me, I like to just you have to do your research and know what you're looking at and know what you're buying into. That's why I've always said I stick to certain products. Now, there are always some people that are in that flipping game, right? They want to buy Score Football when it comes out, and they want to get the Trevor Lawrence card, and then they were the first person to pull that, and then they'll flip that card for double their pack price or whatever. And like, hey, respect. If you're able to do that on all different products, great. For me, I like knowing that whenever I'm getting my hands on it, has a certain level of quality to it. It has a certain level, baseline secondary market value to it. So that's the most important thing, first and foremost. Is knowing what you're buying into. So there's all different types of products. We've spoken about this at length when we kind of did some of the starter pack stuff. There's low end, there's mid tier, there's high end. So let's talk about something like Panini Noir, which was released 2 weeks ago. That came out on July 2nd. That is a basketball product. It's considered high end. The boxes are like over $1,000 per box. However, something like that, your EV is going to be pretty negative. So what I would say when you're getting something like that, you are chasing things like the sneaker spotlight cards, sneaker spotlight autograph cards. These are acetate nice cards with the picture of the player's sneaker and it's signed. They're beautiful. They're big chase cards. That would make your money back for a big name if you get a LeBron sneaker spotlight card or Curry sneaker spotlight card. However, there are cool rookie patch autographs out of that as well, things like that. But for something like that kind of product, I am selling everything that I wasn't chasing or don't want to invest in long term. I'm selling it while that product has a new time frame, new window.
Sure.
You put those cards up right after you rip that box or right after you get those cards back from a break, you're going to get a lot of eyes and a lot of watchers while that card is still within its 1 or 2 week kind of infancy. Now, you risk, like we've spoken about with college uniforms in football, you risk waiting too much longer on some of that stuff. Now, if it's a big rookie and it's one of their rookie autograph cards or whatever, you obviously have a little bit more wiggle room and, it's still a good product. So that stuff's going to sustain. But if you're just trying to sell, I don't know, Kyle Lowry's top of mind just because we were just talking about him, but just like a run of your mill Noir Kyle Lowry autograph card at a 99, you're going to want to sell that within that first month of that or 3 weeks of that product being out. So that's something that is super important to me when we're talking about, ripping and trying to make some money back of your own wax. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think we got a good question in Discord that can piggyback off of that and trying to maximize EV of box breaks and also ripping your own wax. Is there a good resource? I think Card Ladder and Sports Card Investor and 130point.com and all these great resources for individual cards. Is there a good resource out there that you found, something that you're willing to give away the secret sauce on if you're trying to source prices for either buying your own boxes, buying your own blasters, hobby, retail, any of that, any resources that are available to us as collectors to try and find the best price on a box?
Yep. So price shopping boxes and cases too, if you're in that game, is the same as it is for, with the same importance as it is for singles, like we've spoken about. Card Ladder, to their credit, does do this. If you type in hobby box or typing it, they might have a track on the average resale of that hobby box. So they have it for a lot of modern day boxes. So that's a great tool. As far as I think that they're pretty much tracking eBay, but that's totally cool. The way but for the most part, you're going to have to put in a lot of your own research. So what I would start out doing, obviously, the release date of these products, try to get them directly from Panini or Topps. If you're comfortable with what the release date is, if it's not one of those Dutch auctions, whatever it is, that's going to be your best way to know you're getting it at the retail price. But at that point, use some tools. First thing I would do is just type in the hobby box in Google, check out Cardboard Connection, check out Blowout, check out David Adams, Steel City Collectibles. These are kind of all the huge big box online wax sellers, for lack of a better term. So check out what their prices are at, compare them, and then go to eBay and see what people are selling them for secondary. So you can kind of get and look at sold listings, same way we would do for singles. That's one way to do it. And then breakers that do personal breaks. So basically it's the same as getting into a group break, but they'll basically open it for you on stream and just send you the whole box. It's a way to bring money to their breaking operation, but a way to bring people to the channel and things like that. So they'll do that for you. And usually whatever price that they have will be tax and shipping free. So take that into account, right? So if you're buying a hobby box, let's use Formula One as an example. Those are going for around $750 a box right now for the Sapphire, but maybe you can get it for $720 on eBay. But by the time you're paying for tax and shipping on that, you're paying around the same or more. So if you're comfortable and you're already using that breaker, that's something that you have to take into account for a personal box with breaking when breaking is concerned. But yeah, no, you're going to have to put in some of your own work as far as price shopping on that. But the tools are out there for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good tip. And especially as we get into this season where we're going to have a ton of releases, I think this NFL class, as we've talked about on previous shows, is going to be really big for people getting into box breaking and people maybe buying their own retail and hobby boxes and trying to break those, chasing some of these huge named quarterbacks. Any upcoming releases before we get out of here that you want to touch on that are already scheduled?
Yeah, I'll touch on some of the big ones. And this is the last point I want to make because the way this whole topic came up in Discord is kind of ways to mitigate risk around EV. We just spoke about it from time windows. But the other thing for me is the products that you're looking at, you want to make sure that, hey, if you do get stuck with one of the cards or if you're looking for long-term investment, that this stuff does have legs. So the stuff that I keep is really just either high end that I know that historically, like the patch autograph stuff or the chrome based, if it grades, is stuff that is going to be the market indicators of that player, or it is a special circumstance like this year's Formula One, which is the first year that Topps has made these cards. So it's the debut. It's theoretically the rookies for everyone. And, we're in a special circumstance there, right? So like that Lewis Hamilton Superfractor gets pulled, that thing might pull $300,000 on the resale. I wouldn't be surprised at all. It probably will, quite honestly. It'll get over $250,000. So, that's a special circumstance because this is the first year that all these cards have been out. Now it's a very popular thing. They're going to make more and more of them now over the next couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised to see this first year hold a little bit more value, even though, the Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, it's not their rookie. They've been driving for a couple of years, but it is their first year. The same way we talk about Series 1 with Topps. So that's one thing to look at. The other thing is, it's a higher entry point, but things like National Treasures and Flawless, things that are those flagship patch autographs, that's the kind of stuff that you are going to mitigate risk a little bit more, even though you're paying at a higher entry level. Your return, first of all, on the non-chase cards is going to be higher, and your long-term upside is certainly higher. So that's just a way to mitigate EV risk with wax. All that said, some releases. One other recent release was Topps Diamond Icons Baseball was recent. That's a very high-end baseball product, one of the highest ends. It's all on-card autograph, patch stuff. I think it's over $1,000 a box. Really nice stuff. They have rookies in there as well, all the big vets and some retired players. So really nice product. People love Diamond Icons. It's great for group breaks. People usually do it by the single box. You can get in there for a cheap number if you're buying random teams in a single box. Might not hit a card, but at the very least, you're getting in at a cheap number with really high upside. So that's a great release. Tomorrow, Topps Museum Collection Baseball comes out. Tomorrow is 7/14. Another high end, not as high end as Diamond Icons, but they're kind of known for their framed autograph cards. So like they have a gold or silver framed border with like a cool thick ink and Sharpie, and also mostly on card autographs. Nice stuff. And then we have a bunch of basketball releases coming out. So next week we have Clearly Donruss basketball. Let me find one for you while I talk a little bit. So here. So basically it is Donruss, but with clear stock. So it's see-through. So I've been selling a lot of Cameron Johnson for the Suns. Here's one of his rated rookie clear. So you could see me through it. You see that?
Yeah, very cool cards. Very cool.
Yeah. And this is the gold border. So this is one of a short print. So that comes out. So it's one of the Donruss rated rookies. And then we have Select basketball coming out on the 28th. I think you all know at this point, Select is one of the bigger chrome-based products. After that, we have one of the new UFC releases, which I think at that point we'll talk about because we've spoken about UFC a little bit. We're going to want to compare it to Prism. So that's UFC Select. And then we'll start seeing football come out a little bit, guys. So get excited. Gold Standard comes out the 23rd of July. And then Panini Elements football comes out the 30th. That's the first product that I like a little bit. I believe it's in their pro uniform. So we're going to start to finally see some pro uniform stuff. Those have some metal card inserts. So literally they're made of metal with on-card autographs. They have cool rookies in there. That's a decent NFL product. And then from there in August, we're going to start seeing a lot of football trickle out. And then I want to end on August 11th, National Treasures basketball comes out. Really going to be really interested to see what those box prices come out at. Those are the number one flagship basketball rookie patch autographs. We were just talking a little about what those Zion Williamson vertical, the true out of 99s go for over 50 grand. LaMelo, I'm guessing is going to be a redemption. So we'll talk about that when it comes out, but that's kind of about a month out. So big month of releases coming out, and lots to look forward to if you're in the hobby and you're looking to, from all different tiers, low end, high end, mid tier. We got it all coming out over the next month.
Yeah, I mentioned to you, I've got some of the low end UFC Prism stuff, and I had a pretty interesting experience with starting with the Conor McGregor card last weekend. So I'm really excited for the UFC Select boxes to come out, that product to release. I will have some. We'll save it for that show in a couple of weeks. But I'll kind of explain my experience and I think maybe a viable strategy if you're trying to buy and sell in the UFC markets. I think we'll leave it there, man. That was a loaded episode. Lots to take away. Hopefully some good information on everything from basketball to baseball to what to do with boxes and wax if you're buying and selling at this point, and some upcoming releases to look forward to. We'll get you out of here today. Before we do that, I want to mention again, subscribe, rate, review, get you entered into a giveaway that we'll continue to be doing at random. I think Gary may be on the verge of selecting something that he wants to give away once we get to that point, once we feel comfortable with the number of subscribers that we have. So hit it hard, guys. Hit it hard for us. Subscribe, rate, review, and we'll see if we can give that thing away on the next show.
Yeah, I'll leave you on your toes. I'll say this. It's going to be our first slab giveaway. I'm giving out a slabbed card, and tune in next week to find out exactly what we'll be giving away. And, if you leave that review, please subscribe, rate, review. You will be automatically entered. And we appreciate all the love so far. Please keep it coming.
Love it. Thanks for being here, guys. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week. For Gary, I'm Cody. Peace.
Take care.